To be honest, I'm not really sure how to start this video. You can probably tell by the title what we are going to be talking about today. And I know that I didn't have to sit down in front of this camera and talk about losing my sister and to talk about it so early, because we only lost her just over a week ago. But Bree touched so many lives. And back in January, I put up the original video talking about Huntington's disease, my own diagnosis, my family's journey, Brianna's diagnosis and journey with juvenile Huntington's disease. And as I was making that video the last week of January of 2020, I got a call saying that her JHD was so bad that they'd put her on hospice care. And that really shook my world upside down. I mean, getting the diagnosis of Huntington's is already enough to make your world turn upside down, whether you are the person with the diagnosis, whether it's your spouse, your partner, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle, or just a friend or a loved one. It rocks your world. But until you get to that point, I knew that hospice and losing her was going to be something that we were going to have to go through, but I kept putting it off because I didn't want to believe it was going to be so soon. So as I said in the other video, she was diagnosed at 11 years old 3 years ago, but her symptoms began far beyond that. We believe about 7. So 7 years she was battling this thing like a true champion. And I don't take a single second that I had with her for granted. I don't think that there's anything that I regret. Growing up, we were siblings. We had, stupid little arguments or disagreements. I mean, we were laughing over these home videos that we found or memories we could think of when we were in that week together and we knew that she was going to go, trying to remember the good times and to make each other laugh, because that's all you can do in those moments. I mean, yes, we were crying, we were grieving, but with something like HD, you're grieving from the moment that you know about it and from the moment that your family gets diagnosed. So we were trying to balance crying and grieving and the reality of what was going to happen with laughing, because it's a lot. I have been fortunate enough that I really haven't experienced a lot of loss in my life. I've lost people in my life as far as relationships, friendships, but people who are still here. And that's a whole different type of mourning and loss. And although it hurts, I've never, except for when my grandfather died when I was 8, and I wasn't old enough to comprehend what was going on and to be as in tune with my emotions as I am now, to understand what this type of grief and loss feels like. Because she was and still is so impactful and touched so many lives and hearts of people all across the world who didn't even know her in person. And I felt like I owed it to her and to all of you to sit down and acknowledge what happened and to be honest with you, because I've cried so much that I feel like there's no liquid left in my body at all. But I couldn't just go on about my life and pretend like Brianna wasn't a huge part of my life, a part of everybody's lives who knew her. And I posted a tribute video that myself and her 2 other sisters, Kylie and Delaney, put together for her. That is on this channel if you'd like to watch it. It's very long. I originally thought I was going to cut it down so that people who maybe didn't go through all of her journey with her or weren't a part of her family would just have a little snippet to look at. But then I realized this was her life, and 58, I think it's 50 minutes, doesn't matter. An hour isn't going to even put into perspective how incredible she was and the life that we had with her, but she deserves that. So without many edits, I put up almost all the video clips in full, and it was very therapeutic for at least myself and I think my sisters because we got to relive those memories and remember how many incredible ones that we created together. Because even though she had juvenile Huntington's disease, Brianna was such a spirit. Her smile would light up a room. Until she died, she would laugh and have this incredible charm and charisma about her. And even after she was diagnosed, even after she lost her ability to walk and talk, she had a feeding tube placed in her, she couldn't eat anymore, that girl was still laughing, still smiling, still enjoying life, which is just so crazy to me, because I think about everyone's struggle is valid. You don't have to be dying or have a disease to be validated in your struggles. But to see a child who has had so much taken away from her so young be able to live a life full of happiness and love, and to be content with just the people around her. I mean, she's only 14, but she didn't care about having, the newest clothes or the fanciest jewelry. She didn't care about anything except for having her friends and family around her. She learned more in life in her whole 14 years than some people do when they die of a full life at 70, 80, 90. This girl knew how to love. She knew how to live. She passed away. I just want to thank everyone who reached out, to anyone in my family, to me. I did try to go back and respond to every single message and comments, because I knew people were a part of this journey. But there were so many people commenting, sharing, expressing their condolences, that I was overwhelmed with, yes, tears of sadness and grief, but tears of joy, because I knew that she touched and impacted that many people. And that's a gift. Yes, God gave her juvenile Huntington's, and I am a Christian, I am a believer, I have my faith. But some things I just can't grasp. But He gave her a gift in her love and her spirit, and how she navigated her life. Because after I got diagnosed, she was still somewhat functional in her own life. She was still doing some sports like Girls on the Run and running. I mean, she wouldn't fully run. She would just do some speed walks and things like that. And I was on the Girls on the Run team as her coach, and we were doing a lap together, and that was the day I was talking to her for the first time after I'd been diagnosed. And she held my hand and she whispered in my ear, and she said, "Shelby, now we're in this together, and I'm gonna be there with you every single step of the way." And she was, and she still is. And I will never forget that moment. And I'm so grateful that after that had happened, after I got diagnosed, that I started Champions for HD, because that first benefit concert that we did, I knew that I wanted to give Brianna a special moment. And she loved princesses, and because one of her other sisters and I compete in the Miss America organization, she thought we were true actual princesses, but she was always too sick to come and watch us compete because of her disease. So I wanted her to have her own crowning moment where everyone would look at her and she would get her own crown and sash, and it said Champion for HD on it. And that moment, and the moment that she talked to me after I got diagnosed, are two of some of the specialist moments that I get to keep with me forever. And now she gets to be my guardian angel, even though I still miss her and I want her here. But her mom, my stepmom, let each of us have time with her before she went. She was in the hospital during the pandemic, and so only one visitor was allowed with a minor, and I had to be a parent. So only my stepmom and my sister were the only ones at the hospital, and they had told us that she wasn't gonna make it, probably through the week. So initially we thought we weren't going to even get to see her, which was really hard because I had only seen her in February, right after her birthday. And I wanted to see her again in March when I was off of work, and before the quarantine had gotten as extreme as it is now. But I kept telling myself, I know you want time with her, but she is so immunocompromised, don't risk it. So I kept thinking to myself, what if I just gave up my last time to see her? What if she's going to go and the last time I saw her was a couple months ago? And no matter what, you just want a moment with someone. You want one last time, and even when you get that, it's still not enough, but you just want one last time. That's what we were really blessed for, was getting that closure. They sent her home from the hospital. Very blessed. I don't take that for granted. And they sent her by ambulance home to my stepmother's apartment. And they told us that they didn't think she'd make it through the night. So I drove to my stepmother's with my sister Delaney and my sister Kylie and her fiance. And my boyfriend joined us as well. And my brother lives with my stepmom, his mother, and my sister Brianna. We sat with her all night. And I won't go too far into the details, but she quickly declined and was having her lungs fill up with mucus and water. We went through horrible nights watching her suffer. I mean, it's something I would not wish on anyone. And to watch her suffer and to wonder if we should do something, or if there was nothing we could do, but you just feel so hopeless watching someone and knowing that there's nothing that you can do. We ended up going 5 nights of that before she passed on Easter morning. So I'd been crying since the day she got diagnosed. I cried more often after she got put on hospice in January, and then that week leading up to her passing. I don't think there was a day where I wasn't crying, to the point where I just felt numb, or I couldn't get any physical tears out of me anymore. We would spend every night by her bedside and just waiting, because you could tell by the looks of her and by the sounds of her lungs that she didn't have very much time left in her. But I'm so grateful that we each got a moment to say goodbye in private, by ourselves. Brianna was there, but not really. Her body was still breathing, she was still alive, but she wasn't conscious. She wasn't awake. Her eyes were closed. And so we talked to her and we sang to her. And everyone kept saying, hearing is the last thing to go. Keep talking, keep singing. So that first night that we thought she was going to go, I went in there, like we all got a moment with her by ourselves. I went into her bedroom, I shut her door, and I laid in her bed at her side. I held her hand and I rubbed her face and her hair, her head. I sang her a song, and then I sang her another song. I took that time to just tell her how much we loved her and how beautiful she was and how many lives that she touched and what she did in my life. Now, she is the strongest person I know, and that whenever I need an ounce of strength, I think of her, I look to her, because she conquered everything with a smile. And I told her she was my princess and my champion, and I promised her to live out a life that she would be proud of hope, love, laughter, happiness. And that doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy, but it means that I'm going to be grateful for every day that God gives me, because now I know now that it's a gift. She showed me that every single day is a gift. And I kissed her head and I told her that she could go and that she would get to run and dance and sing and be a kid. because she hasn't truly been able to be a kid since the time her symptoms came on, and especially since she got diagnosed. From 7 to 14, Brianna was not able to go out and play with her friends, to go to school dances, to even go to school. She stopped going to school in middle school. But I knew that even though I didn't want to let her go, where she was going was a better place. And as a Christian and someone who has found my faith to grow stronger throughout this entire process, I was so sad, but I felt so comforted that she went home on Easter. And that's what I told everyone, was Jesus rose today, but so did Brianna. And she wasn't in pain. She went in her sleep. And we had done her hair and her nails. And my sister Kylie is getting married this summer. And Brianna was supposed to be the flower girl. So we put on her purple flower girl dress and her bandana that matched with the shoes. They had pearls and they were white. And we sent her off looking as beautiful as ever, and knowing that that's how she would have wanted it. And trying to be at peace knowing that she was looking down on us, and that it's harder for us who are grieving down there than it is for those who have passed. I mean, I would just stare at the wall and the whole day would go by and I'd done nothing. And then I was trying to get myself back in a rhythm. It's only been just about 2 weeks now. And trying to keep myself busy enough so that I didn't sit down and think. Because when I think, I hurt and then I cry. And then my reality hits that she's gone. But what I'm grateful for is that we got to say goodbye. We got to say goodbye. And I know that that sounds so cliche or so crazy that I would be grateful for that. But what really helped me in this process was knowing that I got to say everything I wanted to say to my sister. And from the moment HD came into my life, my whole perspective was never leave a conversation on a bad note. Never leave someone you love not knowing. Never leave someone that you love without telling them that you love them. Because we just think that tomorrow's guaranteed, but it's not. And the last thing I could ever imagine is having an argument or not saying I love you, not telling someone what they mean to you, and then losing them. So we got that time to tell her. And I know that she knew it, but I wanted to reiterate to her that I loved her and that she had kept me so strong and that she would continue to keep me strong. And what she's done for myself, my family, and so many other people. Because I've heard so many other stories that just break my heart, of someone passing in their sleep and not knowing why, or someone gets in a car accident, someone, whatever the case may be, and the people who love that person didn't know. So they didn't have time to say goodbye, or to realize that they should have been saying goodbye every day with an I love you, with a you matter to me, or this is the difference you've made in my life. But we knew from the moment she was diagnosed that we had to take however many years that she had left to say goodbye to her. And that wasn't just by grieving and crying, it was by making those memories that we were smiling about and laughing about as we laid around her bed. It was about giving her the best life that we could despite her circumstances. And I truly believe that we did that. And although I know I'm not going to feel okay, whatever okay is, again anytime soon, I know that I have everything I could have asked for. I was blessed with her before she passed. And now it's about grieving. Now it's about finding this new reality and being comfortable with it. But what has been helping me through this process, I have a dear friend whose name is also Shelby, and our paths crossed a handful of years ago through Miss Michigan. And she sent me this long, beautiful letter with this book in a package, Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom, and told me that she thought it would help me. I'd never heard of this book. I was super excited to read it because of what Shelby had said about it. And I began the book and I never quite finished because at the time I was still working before quarantine and obviously trying to figure out life with Brianna on hospice, and I didn't dedicate enough time to finish the book, but I had begun it. But the timing of when I started it and when I finished it couldn't have been more full circle because of the book and the message in it. I started it when Brianna was on hospice, first put on hospice, and finished it when she had passed. And what I was going through in these past few months has been almost a direct connection to this book. I have so many things highlighted and marked in this book, so I won't go through each and every page, but in a nutshell, this book is about an old man named Morrie, and he used to be a professor, and his student Mitch comes back to visit him after almost 20 years of not seeing him after graduation. The reason that they crossed paths again was Mitch was in his career, in his busy life, and saw a news segment with Morrie on the night show explaining that he had been diagnosed with ALS. After hearing this, Mitch remembers how much Morrie meant to him, how many life lessons outside of the classroom that he took with him from Morrie. They begin seeing each other every Tuesday because that's when they had class together. Mitch asks Morrie so many questions about life, death, money, love, greed, and records these all on tapes and writes this book. And I found out after reading it, Mitch had originally done the tapes and wrote the book so that he could help pay for Morrie's medical bills, which touched me even more because to do something so vulnerable, to write a book like this to help an old professor, that meant so much to him. It's an incredible book. Whether you are impacted by a disease or not, this book is life-changing. And as someone who does have Huntington's, and watching my sister go through being diagnosed, being sick, put on hospice, and passing away, this book felt like it was an entire chapter out of my own life. So especially for any of you in the HD community or any other, this book is incredible. And I cannot believe I did not come across it sooner. So I'm going to share some of my favorite quotes from Tuesdays with Morrie. In the first chapter, Morrie is recalling his diagnosis of ALS and how he felt after getting diagnosed. How much time do we have left? How will we manage? How will we pay the bills? And then it goes on to say, but the idea of quitting did not occur to Morrie. And that's exactly how I felt about Brianna. She never wanted to quit, never did. He would not wither. He would not be ashamed of dying. Instead, he would make death his final project, the center project in his final days. Since everyone was going to die, he could be of great value, right? He could be research, a human textbook. Study me in my slow and patient demise. Watch what happens to me and learn with me. He had discussion groups about dying, what it really meant, how societies had always been afraid of it without necessarily ever understanding it. He told his friends that if they really wanted to help him, they would treat him not with sympathy, but just with visits and phone calls. A sharing of their problems, the way that he had always shared their problems, because Morrie was always a wonderful listener. Chapter 2, the audiovisual. He refused to be depressed. Instead, Morrie became a lightning rod of ideas. He jotted down his thoughts on yellow pads, envelopes, folders, scrap paper. He wrote bite-sized philosophies about living in death's shadow. Accept what you are able to do and what you are not able to do. Accept the past as the past without denying it or discrediting it. Learn to forgive yourself and to forgive others. Don't assume that it is too late to get involved. Mitch is talking to Morrie about dealing with his diagnosis in chapter 2, and Morrie says, "There are mornings when I cry and cry and cry, and I mourn for myself. Some mornings I'm so angry and bitter, but that doesn't last too long. I always get up and continue to say, I want to live. So far, I've been able to do it. Will I be able to continue? I don't know, but I am betting on myself that I will. The fifth Tuesday. This is a theme throughout the book. Morrie emphasizes his importance of love over everything. Morrie said, love each other or perish. It's good, no? And it's true. Without love, we are birds with broken wings. Say I was divorced or living alone or had no children. This disease and what I'm going through would be so much harder. And I'm honestly not sure I could do it. Sure, people would come and visit, friends, associates, but it's not the same as having someone who will never leave. It's not the same as having someone who you know has an eye on you, who is watching you the whole time. That is what family is about. Not just love, but letting others know that there's someone who is watching over them. It's what I missed so much when my mother died, what I call your spiritual security, knowing that your family will be there watching over you and that nothing else will give you that. Not money, not fame, just love. Morrie continues on talking to Mitch about how he wants his family to live while he is sick and after he is gone. Do not stop your lives, he told them. Otherwise, this disease will have taken 3 lives instead of 1. In a way, even as he was dying, he showed respect for his children's worlds. Little wonder that when they sat with him, there was a waterfall of affection. Lots of kisses and jokes, and crouching by the side of his bed while holding his hand. The 6th Tuesday. I know you think that this is just about dying, Morrie said. But it's like I keep telling you. When you learn how to die, you learn how to live. Morrie talked about his most fearful moments, when he felt his chest locked in heaving surges, or when he wasn't sure when his next breath would come. These were horrifying moments, he said, and his first emotions were true horror, fear, and anxiety. But once he had recognized the feel of those emotions, their texture, their moisture, the shiver that ran down his back, the quick flash of heat that crosses your brain, he was then able to say, okay, this is fear. Step away from it. Step away. I thought about how often we need this in everyday life, how we feel lonely, sometimes to the point of tears, but we don't let those tears come because we're not supposed to cry. Or how we feel the surge of love for a partner, but we don't say anything because we're frozen with the fear of what those words might do to our relationship. Morrie's approach was exactly the opposite. Turn on the faucet. Wash yourself with emotion. It won't hurt you. It will only help. If you let the fear inside, if you pull it on like a familiar shirt, then you can say to yourself, all right, it's just fear. I don't have to let it control me. 7th Tuesday, we talk about the fear of aging. It took some getting used to, Morrie admitted. The most personal and basic things had been taken from him. Going to the bathroom, wiping his nose, swallowing his own food. He was solely dependent on others for nearly everything. I asked Morrie how he managed to stay positive through that. Mitch, it's funny, he said. I'm an independent person, so my inclination was to fight all of this. Being helped from the car, having someone else dress me. I felt somewhat ashamed because our culture tells us we should be ashamed if we can't wipe our own behind. But then I figured, forget what culture says. I have ignored the culture much of my life. I'm not going to be ashamed. What's the big deal? And you know what? The strangest thing? What's that? I began to enjoy my dependency. Now I get to have someone turn me on my side and rub cream on my stomach so I don't get sores. Or when they wipe my brow or massage my legs. I revel in it. I close my eyes and I soak it up. And it somehow seems familiar, like becoming a child again. Wherever I went in my life, I met people wanting to gobble up something new. Gobble up a new car, gobble up a new piece of property. You know what I always interpreted that as? These were people so hungry for love that they were accepting substitutes. But it never works. You can't substitute material things for love. Money is not a substitute for tenderness, and power is not a substitute for tenderness. I can tell you as I'm sitting here dying, when you need it most, neither money or power will give you the feeling that you're looking for, no matter how much of either one that you have. The truth is, you don't get satisfaction from those things. You know what really gives you satisfaction? Offering others what you have to give. I don't mean money, Mitch. I mean your time, your concern, your storytelling. It's not hard. This is how you start to get respect, by offering something that you have to give. Do the kind of things that come from the heart. And when you do, you won't be dissatisfied. You won't be envious. You won't be longing for someone else's things. On the contrary, you'll be overwhelmed with what comes back to you. Are you ever worried about being forgotten after you die? I don't think I will be. I've got so many people who've been involved with me, so close in intimate ways, and love is how you stay alive, even after you're gone. When his final moments came, Morrie wanted all of his loved ones to be around him, knowing what was happening. No one would get a sudden phone call or a telegram or have to look at a glass window in some cold and foreign basement. The 11th Tuesday, we talk about our culture. In the beginning of life, when we are infants, he said, we need each other to survive, right? And at the end of life, when you get like me, you need others to survive, right? His voice dropped to a whisper. But here's the secret. In between, we still need each other as well. This disease is knocking at my spirit, but it will not get my spirit. It'll get my body, but it will not get my spirit. Last night, Morrie said softly, wasn't really sure I was going to make it. I started to get dizzy, and then I started to feel a certain peace. I felt that I was ready to go. His eyes widened. Mitch, it was the most incredible feeling. The sensation of accepting what was happening, being completely at peace. I was thinking about a dream I'd had last week where I was crossing a bridge into something unknown, but ready to move on and do whatever was next. That's what we're all looking for, a certain peace with the idea of dying. If we know in the end that we can ultimately have that peace when we die, then we can finally do the really hard thing. Make peace with living. As long as we can love each other and remember the feeling of love that we shared, we can die without ever really going away. All the love that you created is still there. All the memories are still there. You live on in the hearts of everyone you touched and everyone you nurtured while you were here on earth. Death ends a life, not a relationship. None of us can undo what we have already done or relive a life we have already recorded. But if Professor Morris Schwartz taught me anything at all, it was that there is no such thing as too late in life. He was changing until the day he said goodbye. Those are just some of the many incredible quotes and moments that I found myself shivering at how much I could relate to this book, especially in the timing in my life that myself and my family are at. To read this and think about Brianna being put on hospice and going back to my own diagnosis with HD, to now reflecting on it as after Brianna has passed and after Morrie has passed in the book. It's been a blessing to have this book, because why I love art, whether it be a book, a movie, a song, it makes you feel less alone. And not ever going through a grief like this, it has felt so lonely, which is so crazy because I've had so many people reach out. I have a great support system with my family. I've had a lot of people who've had loved ones pass from HD and have gone through very almost identical situations, but yet you feel so alone in this numb, cold, dark grief that you don't know where to place. And this just continued to help me put that into perspective and to know that it's okay to be sad that she's gone. But just because she's gone doesn't mean that those memories, the love, the relationship is gone, or that it ever has to end, because it never will. And to know that someday I will be in the afterlife with her, and I can talk to her and play with her and sing with her again. That's warmed my heart. And it makes me think about death and dying in a completely different manner. I just can't wait to meet her again. But until then, I will be sad, I will grieve, but I will also be so grateful for the incredible young woman who I was lucky enough to call my sister, and continue to live a life of love and happiness and choose hope and joy over everything else, and to give people the love that I would hope to receive back, that she would have given people, that she still embraces people with, even beyond this earth. Thank you all for your unconditional love and support and reaching out. It has meant so much, and I just hope to continue to make my sister proud from above. I love you, Brianna. I miss you every single day, and I could never be more blessed to be your big sister. I hope that you're dancing and singing and enjoying being free of HD for good. I love you.